Have you ever been on a walk with someone and at the end of it, you're like, wow, I didn't know this about them at all? Well, that is the point of Walk and Talk, a podcast where we walk and talk about their lives, their stories, and what makes them them. So join me and my guest every week as I walk and talk with a different person, getting to know them on a deeper level. Today on Walk and Talk, I am joined by Sherri Dement, the current realtor from Westmark, my friend, my realtor, and so much more. So get your shoes, get your phone, and let's go on a walk and hear her story. Well, welcome to another episode of Walk and Talk. Today we are going to try and get it in before we get this rain. And today I am having Sherri Dement on my show as a guest. And I know her. She was our realtor. And she stuck with us for about what seems forever, but I think it was like 3 years.
Maybe, yeah.
So, welcome. I'm very excited to have you. You've got an interesting story to go. So would you like to tell people about yourself, or
Sure, yeah.
just let them look you up?
No, this is good. I'll tell a little about myself. But first of all, say, hey, thanks for inviting me.
You're welcome.
When you sent that message, I was like, ooh, yeah, I'm going to do that for Chris. I love them.
Oh, thank you.
And so I was like, all right, let's do it. So here we are. So let's see. I am a mom, a wife, and I currently have 4 dogs in my house that do not like each other. So everybody has given us a dog, grandma, son, other son, and then our own. So that's kind of our path right now. But anyway, I've been a realtor this is the end of year 7.
Wow.
So isn't that crazy? So you guys were one of the first clients that I met. I was doing an open house.
Yes.
And you and Lauren walked in.
It was our date.
Yeah, it was. Oh, y'all's date? Oh, that's fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. We just hit it off from the beginning. So ultimately it's led us here.
Yes. And before you're a realtor, you're in education.
I was. Yeah. I was a teacher for 9 years. I taught 6 years in Sundown Elementary, taught first grade. And then I moved to Lubbock and taught at Crestview for 3 years.
See, that's why we got along. So I was in education, you were in education.
Yeah.
And then everybody gets along with Lauren.
Well, yeah, that's true. That's true.
So one of the things since we started working together, she looked at me and she goes, "You're a short answer person. I'm a long answer person." I was like, yeah, that's why we get along so well. Like, I'll say something and they'll look at us and be like, what? And then you go ahead and explain it.
Elaborate. Yeah, that's probably our job as wives, or some of us, not everyone.
Yeah, so
You probably ask good questions.
Yeah, she always says I'm doing my teacher thing, probing to get the answer. Sometimes she's like, "You're asking a question, not really talking." I'm like, "Oh, I'm sorry."
I'm trying to learn. Yeah.
And we'll be driving and she'll go, "Okay, I'm going to do what you do." And she'll do the ask a question.
The flip.
Yes.
Yeah, that's fun. Well, my husband is really good at asking questions and then listening to the questions. So if I have learned anything from him, like we've been married, okay, let's see, our oldest is, I have to go back. I have a 20-year-old, 25-year-old, so we've been married 27 years. It'll be 28 this November. But I have learned, or tried to learn, to ask questions and then listen. Ooh, the listening part is what I've just worked on. That's kind of one of my mottos. I think I have it on my Facebook page. It says, I take the time to listen. So if I say that I do it, I have to do it, right?
Yes. And it's funny because, like, in education, you were taught to ask a question and listen. But then, I don't know, like, I've been out of education for 6 months, and, like, I don't even have a schedule anymore. And I felt like my life was over. Like, not in a bad way. It was just like, I don't have structure anymore.
Oh, yeah. So do you have, like, my thing I struggle the most with is systems, like getting good systems in place.
Yeah.
That's why, like, I have, like, Lauren's stuff that I read and look at and all that. But it's, like, trying to find systems for everything. I've kind of gotten pretty good on some.
If you want to go first, that way you don't have to worry about the... Yeah, and we have good systems, and but I told Lauren, I was like, I really just like 8 to 5 jobs.
Yeah.
Like, I like knowing what I'm going to do at every minute.
Yeah. So, and that would be why I left
Yeah.
education, because I don't know that I would say I'm a free spirit. You know, the whole Ramsey free spirit, and what's the other one? Oh, he has like a husband and wife. One's a free spirit and one's a spender. No, one's a budgeter, whatever.
The thinker.
Yeah, maybe it's. So I don't feel like I'm a free spirit, but I also had trouble being confined all day long in a classroom where you couldn't get out for anything. So yeah, I see what you're saying though. Once you get out, but by the time you're at year 7, you're going to be like, yeah, I got this.
Well, and like, I am helping and working at Lauren's company, but I'm still doing the real estate.
Oh yeah. I had someone tell me after 3 years, if you're still doing this and you've got buyers and sellers, after 3 years, you'll be fine. I didn't realize, they don't tell you that it takes 3 years.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people get frustrated, and I always tell people, like, don't. It is just meeting people and learning, letting them trust you.
Well, and
they will. You're trustworthy.
Thank you.
You're worthy of trust. Maybe that's even a better word.
That is a good one. Well, like, I have a person that I did an open house last August, and they reached out a couple weeks ago.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so it's like, yeah, real estate during COVID and right after we all went back to kind of normal, it was nonstop. But now we're back to what it is, the normal. I guess we're going to walk through the parking lot.
Yeah, we can do that. They may not let us.
We can go this way.
Okay.
And it's, you got to put in the time.
Yes.
And so.
And I think people have to see you stay there for a while. Maybe that's the 3 years. That's, I think I tell people, I'm like, I think your friends need to know this is real.
Yeah.
You're going to be there when they buy their house, but also when they move in 5 years to sell it.
Yes.
And once people see that consistency, then their levels of relaxation drop.
Yeah. And I'm not worried about it. It's all God's plan.
God's in control. Yeah. And I want him in control.
Yes.
But sometimes I think I want to be in control.
Oh, yeah.
And ultimately, I do not. I do not want that.
Well, and it's like sometimes you don't even mean to take control.
Yeah.
And you're just going, and then you're like, man, why is this so hard? Like, we were doing so good, and then all of a sudden, it just feels like we're treading upstream with weighted vest on.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, I haven't connected with God today.
One of my things that I have around me all the time is about gratitude and being thankful. And because, man, there is no reason we should not be thankful or grateful or for everything that we have.
Yeah. Well, my dad, he always likes to say the serenity prayer. Like, you can't control other people, so why are you getting frustrated with them?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, okay, you're retired now. It's easy for you to say.
It's easy to say, yeah. Because he's kind of, that's where they say hindsight's 20/20, maybe.
Yeah.
You know, because you really can look back on your life and go, okay, I can see where, and probably by the time I'm a little older than you, maybe a lot. I don't know that I could be your mom, but I'm older. But I think on that and I look back and I'm like, man, what do I want my kids to know? And have you heard that song, Dear Younger Me by Mercy Me?
I don't think so.
Oh, you've got to go listen to it. It's a song about like, what would I tell myself? And would I tell myself what was going to happen to change anything? And it really kind of ends up, the song is like, no, like, thank you. It's a really good song.
I'll go look it up.
Yeah. It's older, but it's still good. I like it. It's a good one.
Would you tell yourself?
There are some things I think, like, do you know, like that, so I was married before and he died and I was 28, turned 29 right after he died. And I think on that and I'm like, there's no way I thought I could handle that. Like 29, you're pretty young, And so as I look at that now, I'm like, I'd probably tell myself, man, you're stronger than you think you are. But again, to know that was coming, no, I wouldn't want to know that. No, I probably wouldn't tell myself much. I'd be like, oh, don't do that, or don't waste your time there or with that person, or all this, friendships, kind of some things. But all of it kind of makes you who you are.
Yeah.
And I think that's where I would be like, no, I'm not gonna.
I'm
gonna cheat myself, maybe, of the experiences.
Yeah.
That I would have.
And like my time at Wilson, at the end, it got it's time to go.
Yeah.
But would I have changed being there? No, because that's what got me to Lauren and the kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so even like just changing the littlest thing, like, oh, maybe instead of getting a job at Wilson, I got a job at a bigger Texas school. But then what else changes?
Mm-hmm.
And so, no, because it's like when I got let go as an athletic director, I thought it was the worst thing ever. Like, that's what I wanted.
Yeah.
But then a year later, we ended up with Blake.
Yeah.
If I was still athletic director,
no chance.
I wouldn't get to be there.
Yeah.
Go home at, I think it was like 3:30 at that time. Go home at 3:30 and go see her.
Yeah. Go for a visit.
Yeah.
Visitation. Yeah. So I think one of the key words that you just, like I heard you say, is it's what I wanted.
Yes.
To be AD. And so probably that really wasn't in God's plan for you, but he allowed you to experience.
Yes.
And that's when I think God has a sense of humor. He's like, oh, I'm going to give you that job.
Oh, yeah.
And then you're going to kind of go, oh. I worked right out of college. So where we're walking is the campus of Lubbock Christian University. And this is where I went to college.
Oh.
So this is why I was like, oh, let's walk over there. And also because I am afraid of dogs in my neighborhood. But
that's understandable.
Well, I can't run very fast. So anyway, so right out of college, I took a job at Victoria's Secret.
Oh. And
I was an assistant store manager. And it did not go. I mean, I prayed for that job completely, 100%. I was like, God, I need this job. I have to have this job. It will be so good for me. I will be good for it. Da 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 da. It was not the worst experience, but it was an experience. It wasn't really sheltered in my life. My parents didn't shelter us, but I wasn't prepared for like phone calls that you'd receive and working at that particular store, But it was just very worldly in there. And I lasted 3 months. And I took a job. Here I am. I have my college degree. And I took a job babysitting. I was like, I don't care what I do. I cannot do that anymore.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of a thing, too. I was like, all right, God, I did beg for that job. I told you I have to have this job. And I got it. So I've always asked now, if it's your will,
There's
if it's going to be really good for me, or if it's going to be an experience I need, then I'm going to be okay with it.
well, me, Lauren, and my dad, we've the latest topic we've been, because I've been just trying to figure out what I wanted to do, like. So I don't know if I told you, I was still getting paid by Wilson these last 6 months, even though I did nothing wrong. But God worked it out that I didn't have to go back out there, and I still finished my contract.
Okay.
And so time was running out, and so we've been talking about, like, me and Lauren, what is the next step? Because I'm not selling enough to make up for the loss. And so we've been talking about, is it God's the one that's opening it, or is the devil creating it and making it feel like God's?
Randall and I just had this same conversation, so keep going.
And so It's like how you were saying about your assistant manager job. Yeah, God, the greatest thing about God is He gives us free will.
Yeah.
And we make the stupidest mistakes, and He still loves us. But then you have to think, did God actually create that, or did He allow Satan to create it and make it seem like He was okay with it? And so that's what we've been struggling with, is because I applied at a couple jobs at tech, not in teaching, just in the offices.
Yeah.
And Lauren's like, well, is God opening this? Or are you wanting to get something so bad that you're just creating it, and Satan's actually creating the opening?
And I think that's where you have to, discernment is huge. Praying for discernment is wisdom, discernment, all the things we kind of don't think about to pray for. But man, that is something that, and I wonder, okay, you said something that you like, if Satan created it and God's allowing it. And I think that's where people would be like, ooh. But I'm like, yeah, we get choices. Mm-hmm. Satan's going to create situations all day long.
Yeah.
And you get a choice. Do you step into that or not? And I feel like God's going to use whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Like, He'll use whatever we give it, as long as we give it to Him, He's going to use it, even if He didn't create it.
Yes. And
but it would be an easier path to find.
Well, and He may not use it for us to get anything out of it, but the people watching us, they're like, oh, what's a Christian going to do in this situation?
Okay, so I'll bring back to when my first husband died. We're in the ER. And the doctor comes out and tells me that he's not alive. And so you go back in, I ask him, I'm like, so I'm a widow? And I mean that word, because my dad died 18 months before.
Oh.
I mean, the look on that doctor's face, I wish I could find him and be like, I'm so sorry, but that word was prominent in my head.
Mm-hmm.
And he looked so crushed. Like I didn't save, or I didn't, and I still remember his face. So I go back into the room, and there's nurses in there and doctors, and they're all like, I go down the hallway and they're just watching me. And I don't really think at that time I'm trying to set a good example. But I also know that James had no fear in death. That was not a big deal to him. He wanted to live, but it wasn't. So he had an asthma attack in the middle of the night.
Oh, okay.
And it just couldn't get. But so years later, I'm working at a dentist office. Years later. And this nurse comes in, and she's an ER nurse at Covenant. She was in that room. She's a Christian now. So I think on that, I'm like, there is no way. She's like, I just watched you, and I wanted what you had. The peace that you had in this, I wanted.
Wow.
And then I had an EMS guy come back and visit, and I was like, man, the control that God gives you, or the peace that He gives you in all things, that's what resonates with the world.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy? Like she's in the dentist chair and we're having this conversation, and finally I was just like, oh, it was probably 3 years later.
That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I think when you get to heaven, God might say, good job.
I hope he does. That would be words you'd love to hear, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
But I think that's like, you turned your tragedy into leaning closer to God.
Yeah.
And God turned that situation to bring home more children.
Mm-hmm.
And so, thankfully, your husband was a believer.
Yeah.
And he went to heaven.
Yeah.
And wow.
And then I look back, and so I look at how like Randall, my my now husband. What do you call him? Like my second? I don't know. Anyway,
He's
always
Randall.
awkward. Yeah. So Randall and I went to college together. So I made this list. I had a friend that told me, she said, "Hey, you need to date." Because so remember, my mom died. My dad died 18 months before.
Mm-hmm.
So I wasn't really interested in doing what my mom did because I watched her. She kind of closed off.
Okay.
And so I thought, okay, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
But I'm young. I mean, my mom was 49, but I'm 29. And so I made a list. My friend said, you need to date. And I was like, I'll make a list of 10 things. And when God brings me those 10 things, I will date. Well, I ended up marrying him because I was like, if you have all 10,
it's got to be the sign. Yeah.
I'm just going to marry, yeah. But it was so fun figuring out my 10 things. We would go out on a night and just hang out and talk. And she'd be like, oh, wasn't that number one? And I was like, yeah, it was, So it was really fun. And so now I always tell him, and he hates this. I'm like, you're just my gift from God, And he's like, oh, because he's not mushy-gushy like that. But it's pretty neat how, I don't know, just life works out.
So did you know who he was?
I did. He's 2 years younger. He'll be happy I said that. Right now he's just 1. But when my birthday comes, it's 2. So I'll give that to him. But yeah, no, I knew him, and we laugh because we would have never dated in college.
Really?
Oh, no. So it's just funny how when people grow up and just experiences in life. So his dad passed away right after he graduated from college. Oh. And so one of my things on the list was they had to have watched somebody die, because I did, and that changes you. You see how, wow, life is pretty. It's here or it's not here. And so that was number 1 on my list, that they had to have watched somebody die. Well, because I think I'm narrowing it down.
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, God. Yeah, I dare you. And this way I was trying to protect myself from I didn't have to date anyone. Then second, I think was, let me think. The second one was something equally as, they had to have been at the funeral. Like I thought, okay, I'll just say they have to have been to the funeral.
The funeral of your...
Yeah, of my first husband. So, I think I'm narrowing it down, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so one night we were talking or doing something. He's like, hey, that song that you played at the funeral? I was like, what do you mean? And he was like, that was a really good song. What was that? And I was like, were you there? And he was like, yeah. So I go back and look at the guest book,
Yeah.
this line, and he was there. I was like, oh, wow. I might just concede right now, So it was pretty neat to watch the whole process of God unveiling for me. So now I have this trust of, yeah, whatever, Lord.
We'll go this way. So did he know your husband?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, that was one thing too. I wanted him to know him because it wasn't a bad situation. It was a happy marriage.
Yes.
I wanted to be able to talk about it and not feel like I could never talk about that person.
Yeah. Or
in a kind way. And so it needed to be somebody pretty special to deal with that. Like for years, we would go out and eat with James's family, and it was just fun. His mom since passed. And anyway, it was just a unique blend that only God could do.
Yes. Wow.
The things you learn on a walk.
When you were dating Randall, did he know about the list, or that wasn't until after?
That wasn't until after. Good morning. Yeah,
But
no.
you made the list because you didn't think anybody was going to check it off.
Yeah. Oh, you should. Yeah. Like they had to be from a small town. Never married.
And he got all 10?
He got all 10.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
definitely a God thing.
Good morning.
Morning.
Yeah. Yeah. Isn't it?
That's amazing.
Yeah. That's yeah. It's pretty.
And then
Okay.
that's and just the fact that he was like when you said James
Yes.
were married, dating. Did you know Randall at that time?
We did. Yeah. In fact, the Sunday before he passed, Randall and his friends had sat behind us in church, like a couple rows or something. No, we were in the same, like at LCU, you have social clubs.
Uh-huh.
So he was in the brother club to my social club.
Okay. So was he dating anybody at the time? Like,
no. Oh, actually, this is kind of funny. Yeah, he was. There was, he was not dating, but he was on dates. And so, and when we started dating one time, okay, he's going to hate that I tell this. Don't listen. Okay. We go to the same church. Okay? Yeah. So I go to church and Randall and I've been hanging out quite a bit and not really calling it dating because it was fairly soon. Okay. So we're just getting to know each other and truly hanging out, and just talking. And I go to church and I see him there. And so I go in and I sit beside him. He's on a date.
Oh, wow.
To church. And he said he was sitting there going, I have no idea how to get out of this.
I bet.
I had no clue. It finally dawns on me, oh, there's a girl beside him. And so then I'm like, well, I don't really know what to do here either. Because I thought, well, you know what? We didn't know what was going to, with us. And so anyway, it was hilarious. Poor guy. But in the end, my apple pie baking ability won out, I think.
Wow.
I made an apple pie for him, and he's like, this is the best thing I've ever eaten.
So does he talk about, like, did he question, like, why he couldn't find anybody to get married during that time? And now it's like, oh, because God was saving me for...
Yeah, isn't that crazy? So I think for him, he was dating, but he just never really... He would say, he was like, it just wasn't really like it was with me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you would know,
yeah.
Like with Lauren, it's just different.
Yeah.
You just really, even truly, you just know something's different there. And, you're attracted to the person, but it's deeper than that.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, man, everything about you.
You love. Like,
yeah, and maybe not everything. I'm sure he doesn't love everything about me, but
no, I think it is.
But the big things,
yeah,
like you just kind of can go, well, this feels like almost like home.
Well, it's like it's funny because Lauren knows this. Like, I didn't want kids.
Oh, you're the best dad too. That's awesome.
And so,
good morning.
Me and Lauren, when we started talking and dating, she didn't tell me she had kids for a little bit because that's not an easy thing.
Right.
Like, and I understand.
When you want to protect the kids.
Yeah. And so she told me, I was like, oh man, what? You got kids? And I was like, huh. But I already knew, like, me and Lauren met on Tinder. And so we talked before we actually went on any dates.
Yeah.
And so I'd already, like, fallen for her.
Mm.
And so it wasn't like, oh, no, I don't want... It was more of, wait, what? Who are you now?
Oh, okay.
And then it, like, started to make sense because we'd be talking or, like, texting, and then, like, at 8 o'clock.
It's bedtime.
It's the kid's bedtime, and she
ghosts you?
Yes. And I'd be like, what is this girl doing? But then it made me want, like, oh, I'm going to get her. One of these nights, I'm going to get her to talk to me after this time.
Yeah.
And so then when she said that, it was like, oh, now it all makes complete sense.
Now I know.
And even, like, the weekends that we would talk more because the kids were at their dad's house. So she had free time more.
Uh-huh.
So it's like, oh.
All the connections. Yeah.
And so, like, yeah, and even like dating leading up to that, like it was never just like the one. Like, you wanted it to be the one.
You just knew.
Yeah.
I think you just know. I always tell the boys, you'll know. You'll know.
Like, she says I was the one that was late to the first date. And it was because I was watching Michigan football and I didn't see. No, the notification never popped up. And so we had that funny story about that. But then, like, we were at Orlando's and we both ordered food. We didn't even eat.
Just talked.
We just talked. And I just remember sitting there and just wanting to listen.
Yeah.
I just like listening to her talk. And
well, you're a wise man because she's wonderful.
Yes, I got very lucky with her.
Yeah,
I'm very blessed, and it's true.
But you chose wise. That's what I tell people too. I'm like, some of it is how you chose. Mm-hmm. That you were close enough to allow God to let him bring you into your life, and then you get to decide: is this from Satan or is this from God? You know, and clearly,
yeah,
we know she's a gift. I don't know.
I don't know. She might think it's from Satan.
She would not.
No, I know.
Yeah.
But it's... Well, and the other thing is, like, my dad always said to us, like, marriage is the best thing, but it's going to be the hardest thing you ever do.
Yeah.
And I don't think people realize, like, it is the hardest thing you do. It's also the easiest, but it's the hardest.
A good marriage is hard.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because I think you could probably be, like, status quo and be like, yeah, it's my old ball and chain or whatever, you know. But to be looking for good and to be good at it, self-sacrifice.
Yeah, and like the stage that we're at in ours is working on the communication.
Yeah.
And it's funny because like our first episode that I did of Walk and Talk, I had Isaiah, he's our young adults pastor, and he asked the question, do you see your communication better or worse than when you guys were dating? Because that's all we had. Because Saturday, Sunday, we had each other, but then I had to go back to New Mexico.
Okay.
And so we had to learn how to communicate texting and on the phone.
Which sometimes the phone is not the best way to communicate.
No, and we have a rule. Like if we're in an argument, because it's marriage, people, you get in arguments.
So what's your rule?
We're not allowed to text about it.
Oh, that's a good rule.
Because
you never understand.
Yeah, like
the tone.
Exactly. The tone is all about it. And it's like, we're allowed to be mad and upset. But it's how you come back together.
Yeah.
Like, we're humans. We're going to have emotions. And you're with this person for the rest of your life. They know how to push your buttons. And then you throw kids in there. Something's going to...
never push your buttons.
No. So, you know...
How old's Chloe now?
Oh, she's 15.
Oh.
Emmett's 10.
That's crazy.
Blake's 3. And every day she's like, my birthday tomorrow, so I'll be this many. We're like, no.
She's like, I just want to be celebrated.
And Emmett's like, I'm 11. I'm like, dude, you're 10. He's like, I'm almost 11. I'm like, you still got 6 months.
You are closer to 11 than you are 10. But
well, I know why he does it. It's one time we had a conversation because abortion's always in the news and on the phone. Everybody's talking about it. And so I told him, like, I believe as soon as you find life, you're born. Like, they're alive. Like, thinking back when Lauren was pregnant, because I didn't get to experience the pregnancy of Chloe and Emmett. Like, the little things that, like, Blake would do, like the kick.
Yeah.
Like, it's still her personality, like, outside of Lauren's belly. Like, certain stuff she was laughing at, or I would say something and she wouldn't like. And so she still does stuff like that. And it's like, of course they're alive in there.
Of course. Yeah.
And so I told Emmett, I was like, technically, you're 10 and 9 months.
And he took that and
because I told him, like, I don't believe in abortion. And he's like, well, what about all of it? And I was like, I have to believe God did it for a reason.
Yeah.
That's the only way I can get around it. What would happen? I was like, if it happened to your sister, to your mom, that's the only way I could comprehend what happened to them.
Yeah.
Is God did this for his plan. And he's like, I don't know that he actually understood what we were talking about, except for that I consider them to be 9 months older.
Then, yeah, that's what he latched onto.
Yeah.
But someday he'll catch the other parts and be like, okay, give them baby steps, and then when they're ready for other stuff.
But also, kids don't wait until you're ready to talk about stuff. Like, you'll be driving after a kind of long day, and they'll just throw it on you, and you're like, oh my gosh, what? Where are you watching this that you need?
Yeah. Who do you talk to? Who are your friends? No. It gets so fun now. I will tell you, having adult children is awesome. Like, it makes all those years, not that they're without, not that I don't stress over them or lose sleep or pray constantly still for them, but
I guess
it's different. They're kind of their person.
Mm-hmm.
And you just get to just be a friend. It's pretty cool. We've really enjoyed that part. So if that gives you any, to hang in there and keep doing it,
Oh, yeah. And that's what me and Lauren talk about. It's like, yeah, we could be the friends now, but they're not going to be our friends when they're older and leave us.
No.
They're going to resent us because we didn't teach them how to be people, like you say. Like,
yeah, it's really fun. Like, our oldest son lives in Philadelphia now.
Oh.
He took a job that he really wanted this job, and so it took him to Philadelphia. And it has been more fun, like, just having to be intentional with communication, phone conversations. He's in student life, but he's in the study abroad part of Drexel.
Oh.
And so, my husband here at LCU is in student life. So they have these conversations about work.
Yeah.
And that's kind of fun. And then I get he's in a kickball league because he was meeting friends. And he's like, I joined a kickball league. So, and then the youngest one is a sophomore here. So it's kind of fun.
So how did you handle when he said he's going all the way across country? Do you have a little like, well, excuse me? No, you're not.
No, because I knew he needed to. That's kind of fun because I'm so thankful. Like, I had them 4 years longer than most people do because they went to college here.
Yeah.
So I felt really lucky that we had them 4 years longer is what I consider. Because some people, you go off to college and then you don't go back home.
Yeah.
I didn't. Yeah. So at 18, I guess I was actually 17 when I came to college. But that's a long time. Like, you just lived with your parents and then you're gone.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel really lucky that I had them and got to watch them really, as they become more men than boy. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Well, and one of our pastors at church, he was talking about kids, and he's like, you don't want them to be turds when they go off.
You don't.
And he wasn't saying it like as an insult to the kids. He was saying it as an insult to parents.
Yeah.
Like, it's your job to raise them up.
Yeah.
Kids are almost a reflection of your parenting and your beliefs.
Yeah.
And he's like, yes, they have the free will to do what they want.
They do. And they go rogue sometimes.
But if you set the principles and structure in their life, they're usually going to end up good people.
Yeah.
If you have the Christian foundation set. And I was just sitting there like, man, because it was a week where I had to get on to Emmett and Chloe, and of course Blakely, it's different getting onto, but I was just like, oh man, what did I do? And so it's like, you never know if you're doing it right.
Oh, you don't. And they'll, like ours have told us later, they're like, hey, you probably didn't do so great on this thing. And we're like, oh, sorry. We didn't know. You really, even though we were older as parents, you just really don't know what you're doing.
Mm-mm.
And you don't know what will impact and stick into your kids' brains that you really didn't mean to.
Yeah.
We used to joke and be like, we wanted to be able to pick out like the one thing that you would be like, I got to go to therapy for that. Y'all really messed that up.
Yes.
And it really probably could just be a lifetime of little things. Those are not one big thing.
Yeah.
Because I think we're all human.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, but it's fun right now. I will tell you that. It really is fun.
Well, and like my parents, they now live in Lubbock. We found them a house. And like last night,
Where'd they end up?
Northridge.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And it total God thing.
Oh.
We had
Northridge or North Point? Like, are they north?
North Point, you're right.
Okay.
Not Northridge.
Well, Northridge is where my school's, my friend's principal.
I
was like, oh, fun. But,
North Point.
Okay.
And
I like that area.
We had kind of like given up. Like they had looked at it a lot, and then they were going on a cruise, and they're like, "No, if we don't find anything, we'll." And I got on my computer to do the MLS daily check, and there it was. And we stayed at that house for like 3.5 hours.
Oh wow, that's when you know, yeah.
And we put the offer in. I went to pick up Blake. We went and we were eating at Chick-fil-A because, again, my parents were going on a cruise for a month and a half. And so as we're ending dinner, I got the call that they accepted the offer, and then they still went on the cruise.
That's cool.
So my brother had to do the power attorney. So that was fun.
I would have been like, yeah, I'm out. I'm going to do my cruise.
Yeah. And then they actually ended up cutting it short. No, not the cruise, but they were going to stay in Florida. They call it the Villages. It's for, I think it's like 55 and older can only live there.
I think I saw a video on that, or not a podcast, but I think I saw
a TikTok of it.
Yes.
Yeah, and one of them that I saw, I always joke with my parents because it's supposed to be a swingers community.
Oh, okay.
But when they were there, they're like, they're like, well, we weren't looking for it, but we never had anybody come up and say, like, they're like, it was just retirement.
Yeah.
So they were going to stay there for, I think, like 3 weeks. But my mom wanted to get back and get started on
the house.
And so it was just funny to see how, like, God just, like, as soon as you, like, think you know what you're doing, and you just just go back to him, and he's like, I got you.
Yeah. Every time, go back to him.
And then, like, the kids. Like, the one thing I know we got right, our kids love to go to church.
That's good.
Like,
yeah.
We drive by church, because it's right by Walmart, and Blake's like, that's my church. We're going to church.
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, no, we're just going home.
We're just going home, honey.
Or, like, Chloe has youth night. Well, they also do, we have small groups, and so they have babysitters on Wednesday night also. And we used to not send Emmett and Blake because we wanted Chloe to have, like, youth night. But Blake would throw a tantrum because she didn't get to go to church.
Oh, yeah, you're like, okay.
And then Emmett, he's like, I really want to go. And I'm like, what do you do? He's like, I just like it in there.
Oh, see, that's a good.
And it's like, how can you...
You can't ask for better than that.
Yeah.
That your kids want to be somewhere.
And, like, Blake cracks me up. We'll all sit down to eat, and if we forget to pray, she'll be like, we forgot to pray. And she'll do her little, God is good, God is great, let us thank him for our food. Oh. And now it's like evolved. And
you're like, yes, he is. And yes, that whole gratitude thing again, they learn at such an age that they don't even really know that they're...
And so I always tell Lauren, I'm like, if they just go out and love Jesus, we're good.
That's all you want. You just really kind of want your kids
if they're
weird, love the Lord.
If they're weird like John the Baptist, it works out.
It works out. It'll all work out.
So, yeah, kids are fun, and I agree. Like my relationship with my parents now is, and it's always been good, but now it's like a different one.
Yeah.
And it's a fun one. We'll go back this way. And so I agree. You're at the fun stage.
It's the stage that made all the hard work worth it.
Mm-hmm.
And by hard work, it's like, no, we don't act like that.
Yeah.
No, we're not going to throw a fit in the grocery store. We're going to leave the grocery store with all of our groceries in it.
Yeah.
And, it's funny. I always laugh because I think God gives you children and then he doesn't give you one child with the same personality as the other one, So you think you're doing good. You have the first one. And then we waited 5 years and had another one. So they're 5 years apart. And we laugh because we're like, okay, we got this, but they were not the same personality at all. And now, man, I wouldn't trade that for anything, but you're like, oh man, I thought I kind of had this down.
Yes.
And no, you're not your brother.
Oh, and like Emmett and Chloe, they're closer in age than Emmett and Blake, and definitely, but it's funny because Blake has my personality one day, and then she's got Lauren's personality, and it can be like even in the same day.
Same day, she's even like.
And so we're just like, we got enough kids. And then the older kids, you can definitely see Lauren's personality in Chloe, and then Emmett, the loving, passionate side.
Yeah.
And the servant mentality, that's definitely from Lauren. And so it's just, kids are the best and the worst sometimes, but I love them.
Well, I think it makes you look at God differently too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and I don't think that you can't look at God differently if you don't have kids. I just think if you happen to have them, you do have that lens to look through. So I always try to be careful because I know there's a lot of people out there that either want kids or don't have kids, and I'm like, oh, no, you can have almost a more pure relationship with God because you don't have the distractions,
Well, and
or the fears that raising kids brings about.
And I see it like this, like we have a toddler and she makes mistakes and yet we're still there to help her. And in God's eyes, we're toddlers.
Yeah.
And so it's helped see oh, if God can forgive me for this and I'm this old, I can help Blakely.
It does. You get a little bit more grace-filled, I think. So, I don't know.
Well, thank you so much for coming on.
This was so fun. I learned a lot.
Yes, so did I.
That was really fun.
I told you it's a different, when you hear about it, you're like, what? That doesn't even sound normal. And then once people get on, they're like, okay, I see where we're going there.
Conversations just flow easily.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're good.
So thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for asking me.
Wow, what another great walk I just had. It truly shows that I never know what's going to happen on the walk and talk. So thank you, Sherrie, for coming on and sharing your story with us. And come back next week as we have Jenna and is coming on next week to go on a walk and talk and share her story. It's going to be exciting. It's the first time I've had a couple come on, as she is married to Isaiah from my first episode. So come back next week and catch her episode and join us on a walk.
Let's not waste time, take this slow.